Dr. Jazz.
But man,
Dr.
thanks for finding the time. I've done this talk with almost all the saxophone players of your generations,
Oh,
from
wow. Okay.
Samos to Mark Turner to all these amazing guys, and I was just you were the one missing. So uh,
Oh, man, well, I'm glad I could do it. Did
yeah,
you did did you ever live in New York?
I went there before COVID every year, like, and I played with so many New York guys, like from David Binney and Donnie McCaslin and Gerald Cleaver and all these guys, and
You play guitar?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. But then after COVID, I stopped coming. I was just like,
Hmm.
I don't know, things changed. I think
Yeah.
somehow everyone left New York almost. Not true,
New
but
York's, yeah, it's different. It's a different place.
it's a different place. Yeah, for sure. But yeah. But Chris, I wanted to start with the new album. I was so happy when I saw that you hooked up with Bill Frisell because he's like the hero. What's your story with Bill? And I mean, the story about the new record. I just heard one tune, but I was
Oh,
listening to Saturday songs today, and since I love Steve Cardenas and your
okay.
writing, but what's the story about the new record and your connection with Bill?
Um, well, J Jerome Sabah approached me about doing a record for his label, Analog Tone Factory. It's a new label, and so far he's only released his own records on the label, but he wanted to release, he wants to start recording other people,
Oh, fantastic!
and so it was his idea actually to try to get Bill because he knew that um, people would be interested in hearing that, him, of course. And so, yeah, so he asked me about that, and um, but I guess I've known Bill for a long time. There was one gig that where Chris Potter and I subbed for Joe Lovano
Oh wow, wow,
at
beautiful.
the Knitting Factory, just like one set, because it was like a double bill with the Electric Bebop, or was it? Or no, maybe it wasn't. No, that was a separate thing. Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, I think it was just yeah. Paul was playing there with Lovano and Frizzell, and so I get to, and so and Chris Potter couldn't make the sound check, so I got
Oh
to
wow.
play with the three of those guys, and we went out and there was a Mexican place around the corner back then and had dinner. So that was my first time I met him. Um, and let's see, he did ask me to play with his band for a week at the Vanguard.
Oh, okay. So you did play with him a bit. Okay.
Yeah, and then I remember after that, I went with them to the Cheltenham Jazz Festival.
Mm,
And I
okay.
played. Well, that was a while ago, and yeah. So it was a thrill to be able to play with him again, and he's just he's an incredible musician, and yeah.
Did you
So
intentionally pick also Tony and Rudy? Because I know
ah,
Tony has like a really long history with Bill and Rudy as well, like the last 10 years, right?
yeah. Yeah, well, I also think of those records like, Ben Webster with the Oscar Peterson Trio or Stan Getz with, the Oscar Peterson Trio. And so I like the idea of like coming in and just playing with an established band, a trio.
Mm.
I happened to see Bill and Tony and Rudy play at the Drake in Amherst last year. Um, and it was great. And so I had the idea um, of asking them as a band to play it, and we just kind of because I knew it would sound great no matter
Oh,
what we
absolutely.
did,
Yeah.
like um, so yeah, that was my thought about that.
Yeah, it's so nice because I think your sound and Bill's, it's just like, it's a match made in heaven, man. It's really
Oh,
like incredible. I mean, what I've heard, like, beautiful.
oh, thanks.
This
Yeah,
is so nice.
yeah, he's got a very yes, like a kind of like a very yeah, like gentle sound
Yeah.
in a way, but he's very dynamic, like not sit. Of course he can play loud, but his sound and his touch is like it's like very very it has so much depth to it,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so
What about the writing for the record? I mean, I've always loved your compositions, going back to, Girl Named Joe and Vine and all those records and Saturday songs I listen today. And like, how did you approach the writing this time? Did you know like you're writing for this band? And
no, no. I well the last tune that came together was actually that tune Kino's Canoe. Like
yeah,
I'd been working on that, but I hadn't finished it yet, um, and I had written this tune Keepers of the Eastern Door last year when I was playing with these guys in the Netherlands. We did a tour.
oh really?
Uh,
Oh,
Rembrandt Frerichs, Mark Hanstra, and Jamie Pete, and so it was a tune that was fresh, and we tried it out, um and so I had that, and I for a year I subbed for Mark Turner teaching in Basel, so Switzerland.
oh,
So
okay.
I got to go over there a lot and work with students, and it gave me a chance to like prepare some arrangements, and so that tune O Sacrum Convivium kind of came out of that, of me trying to arrange um uh like my study of that tune for horns and turn it into yeah, like a jazz tune.
Yeah.
um let's see, and the other original, there's three originals on the record. This one, Go On Dear, that was an old song that I also had like kicking around for a while, that I had played but never recorded. um And it was weird. It's just a weird thing. Everything kind of came together because of the artwork, I think, in a big way.
Yeah,
When
that's
Jerome
beautiful. Yeah.
asked me, I just happened to find this, yeah, this photograph in the St. Louis Art Museum. I took a picture of it, and I sent it to Jerome, and he found out who the photographer was, and then we found these other pictures, and then we found what was going to be the cover. And I had this tune Kino's Canoe, and so I knew I had to like finish that, and so yeah, it was just I sort of knew I kind of what was going to be on the record.
Mm.
Jerome actually came up with the order, in
Okay.
very interesting. Um, uh, but I brought some other tunes just to have extra material, but we wound up not using
Mm.
stuff. So
Do you write a lot otherwise?
I haven't lately.
Mm.
I go in cycles, I guess.
Like you
Usually, if
all,
I
yeah.
have something, if I have a reason to, if I have something coming up, like a project, um, then I'll do it. I have a lot of little ideas, and I work on other stuff, but um, it I one of my greatest inspirations is Guillermo Klein.
Mm.
And
Sure.
I see him as a writer. He's always writing. He showed me his notebook. He just always is jotting down little ideas, and then building tunes from that. And I think that's really cool. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Like the do I wanted to ask you this, like I love your stuff as a band leader, but uh and when I saw that you have a record coming out, I was like, yes, finally. Like,
oh
how have you developed as a band leader through the years, and do you like? I mean, it's a stupid question in a way, but also not like, do you like the band leading part? Because it's like, the last one was like 9 years ago or something.
oh yeah. I guess I've never felt good, comfortable like being a band leader. I just always wanted to be
Interesting.
in a band, and so I guess that's why I don't know. I've had some opportunities, mostly through the kindness of friends. Like Jorge's like set me up with
Yeah.
some tours and some gigs, and um, I'm probably going to do something down in New York in June, hopefully. Um, uh, but yeah, I've always liked being a sideman, actually, and less certain as a leader,
Mm.
somehow. So, but I like to write,
Yeah, absolutely.
and almost looked at it more as a hobby than as like a serious career move or something.
Yeah, it's become almost like a hobby, right? Band leading nowadays.
Yeah,
like
well,
or
and
records.
actually
It's
speaking, yeah, I mean, I'm not like a business like go-getter guy, you know,
mm,
like should probably do more of that, you know, definitely. But I do know, and I've worked for people, friends of mine, who, as band leaders, wind up breaking even or losing money on their
yeah,
tours. I mean, I see
absolutely.
it, you know, with Jorge and with Jeff Ballard and you know guys that we revere. And
Yeah,
yeah, as a band leader, it's tough. You got to, yeah. I don't, you know, some people are manage to do it. You know.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you this also, since I have you here. Like, uh, you know, I listen these days to your records, going back, like the Fresh Sound stuff and everything. How was it for you when you moved to New York? And because you have such a recognizable sound, and your generation is so strong. You know, like I mentioned, Samos and Mark Turner and Josh Redman, and you know the list goes on of these players. And when you came to New York, there was still like you know Bob Mintzer and Michael Brecker and Bob Berg, I guess, still alive. What was your story on moving to New York? How did you decide to do that, and then entering the scene? I mean,
Oh, yeah. I was reluctant because I was living in Boston I was playing in a band called Groovosaurus, which I loved and every you know those guys were such good friends, you
mm,
know, and I really didn't want to move to New York, you know. Um, but but Kurt wrote me a letter, like a really nice letter, and I remember getting one time, and you know he was like trying encouraging me to move down there, um, and just by chance we were doing a gig with Groovosaurus, and I somehow like not not so close to New York City, but it was you know it was closer than it was like outside Boston,
mm,
like going towards New York. Anyways, I found out that this apartment had come available with some guys I knew, Paul Motyka, Renee Hart, and I don't know, they somehow got in touch, and so after the gig, I went down to New York to look at the place. It was in Carroll Gardens. It was really nice. There was a basement where we could
mm.
play there. Yeah, we were really lucky. Um, and just kind of on a whim, you know, and that you know they were like, we need somebody, you know, now, and I just kind of made the decision, you know. You know, I was at that time I'd finished Berkeley, but I was still in Boston, and I was doing a few little gigs, and I had a little day job,
Mm.
so I was just kind of, you know, yeah, um, yeah, just there. So
Interesting.
uh,
And then in New York, like who were the first connections you made actually?
yeah, well, let's see. I mean, everybody I knew Mercedes Rossi,
Mm. Oh yeah.
his sister, and Jorge, of course. Jorge wound up moving in the apartment, like on the second floor of the same building. So he was always having people over. We were always meeting people, and yeah, and Kurt was living there with Jim Black and Chris
Oh yeah,
Speed.
the Seattle guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and Andrew D'Angelo with the Human Field Band.
Yeah, yeah.
Those guys are great. Um, let's see. Um, yeah, and my friend Tom Beckham moved down, a
Oh yeah,
vibraphonist,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
and then he wound up being roommates with George Colligan,
Mm.
uh, the piano player, and then Chris Higgins was there. Bruce Arkin, when he was alive, he was living there. Um, yeah, and Seamus, everybody kind of moved down. Yeah, this is kind of within a few years, I guess.
Yeah.
Ingrid Jensen, Guillermo,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, Magali Suriu was in New York. She's
Mm.
a pianist and
Ah, okay. Don't
has a
know.
big band. Oh, you don't know
No,
her?
no, I
Magali
should have to check her out.
Suriu? Yeah, she's not really performing or anymore, but she's got some great records
Wow.
and
Okay, to check it out. Don't know. Oh. How did the gig with Paul Motion happen then? I mean, because
oh
you stayed with Paul for such a long time, and but what's the story of I
yeah
mean,
that
what and being playing with him? How was that like for you also?
oh gosh yeah yeah that's harder to say, but what I mean what I had done some playing with Wolfgang Moospiel, who I
Ah,
also met at Berkeley. He asked me to do some tours actually, um yeah, I got to play with Larry Grenadier and Don Elias and Tom
mm,
Harrell. We did a couple tours,
oh, beautiful.
and I guess we did a gig at Town Hall in New York. and Wolfgang was also doing some playing with Paul at that time in a separate trio. And I guess Paul came to that gig and heard me.
Mm.
But at that time in the electric bebop band, Kurt was playing, and I knew Kurt from Berkeley, and
Yeah.
I guess Paul also asked guys in the band if they would recommend somebody. So yeah, I somehow got recommended. I don't know. I still don't know. Um, I was in Paris actually, playing with Stefan Furyk and Jim Black.
Oh yeah, that band. Yeah, I love that group.
Yeah,
That was a great group.
Patrick Gorger.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kishinev band. Um, and this and someone managed to call me in France and said, Paul Motian left a message on your voice machine, so you might want to call him back. So I called him from Paris actually. I was, and I kind of didn't, yeah, didn't, didn't make sense. Hard to believe. Oh, but playing with him, yeah, I mean, that's what he sounded like, and
Mm.
it was so, he just made everybody sound so good because his time was so good and everything just felt so good,
Yeah.
It was easy to kind of take him for granted sometimes because there was never any, yeah, it was like rhythmically so, um, strong, yeah, essential.
Yeah.
And I was lucky I got to go on a lot of tours with him, like on the trains, and he's with his bags like going up and down the stairs like with everyone else. That was impressive. To see him just, yeah, like hauling around the trains of Europe, like um
Yeah, when he was still traveling, right? Yeah. And
mhm.
basically, yeah, I think you guys must have traveled a lot from like early 90s and way back
Yeah.
in 2000s, right? Still.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did numerous tours of Europe, and we went to Brazil, and we even went to China with
Wow,
Paul.
really? Oh,
Mhm.
amazing,
Yeah.
man.
Um, but he was also like really unpredictable too, and like I remember sometimes everybody thinks of him as being like very interactive, and all
Yeah.
the interplay, and of course he's the master of that. But I remember sometimes he wouldn't interact at all. He would just play time, and and it felt like hard work. He was waiting to see. See, that's the thing. He controlled the band, the feel of the
Yeah.
band. And if something happened and he wasn't happy, we could all feel it. He didn't have to say anything. It was like a very tangible, visceral um, uh, experience. Um,
Because he had like a bunch of young guys, with the exception of Steve, right? Swallow. I mean, but
yeah, yeah. I
all of
mean,
you were in the early mid
as
20s,
Brad
and
Shepard and
yeah,
Kurt
yeah.
um, um, and then Anders Christensen was in the
Oh yeah,
band
exactly.
after Swallow. Yeah.
Amazing, man.
So.
How did then the
One
connection?
thing I always, when people ask me about Paul, one thing,
Yeah,
especially everything I mean, the one thing I like to just tell drummers is one thing I always was fascinated by was like where he would hit the ride cymbal. It seemed like he was always hitting the ride cymbal in a different place, like, and with a different part of the stick. A lot of times I see drummers like they just play the cymbal in like one small little area of the cymbal, like over and over and over again. But Paul seemed like he was like experimenting or finding out about it while he was doing it or something.
interesting. Did
Um,
you guys talk a lot about your arrangements? Because like or how did that happen with the tunes?
he wanted us to decide.
Oh, okay.
He wanted us to come up with arrangements, and he had like loose ideas, like he wanted to hear people play together. He didn't want to have long solos. Well, he would let Chris Potter solo as long as he wanted. But the rest of us, he would have like rein us in, and um, so he'd like to hear people trading and then playing together. So
Yeah,
um, and different instruments playing the melody. Um,
yeah, I
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
we didn't really talk too much about the music though, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So it was kind of between you guys, like that you said, like, or looked at each other, how where you're gonna go, or
yeah, we would decide, and then he would, I guess he would make a final decision, or of course he'd agree, and um, but people would have suggestions.
yeah. What about composing? Because you also composed, each of you guys, right? I mean, I know you did like on Garden of Eden. I think there's one tune of yours.
Um, yeah, we didn't. I don't think I don't know if we played that live ever. Maybe
Oh,
we did
okay.
twice, but let's see. And in the beginning, we were playing one of Kurt's tunes, East Coast Love
Oh yeah,
Affair.
yeah, yeah.
Fun. And then we were playing one of Chris Potter's tunes for a while. And then there was a tune of Cardenas. Cardenas is called New Moon that we were playing.
Mm,
Um, but no, yeah, it was mostly what Paul wanted to play, like his, like
interesting. Okay.
bebop stuff, and then working in more of his originals as time went on.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
How did I mentioned before already the Fresh Sounds records because it's in the same period, like mid '90s. How did that connection with Jordy happen, Fresh Sound? And you were so productive. I think you did like 3 records in 3 years or something like that. Those I Wish I Knew until Vine and
oh, well, that's all Jorge. I mean, Jorge is,
oh
I
yeah.
mean, is responsible. I wouldn't have really, I don't know what my career would look like if it wasn't for Jorge. Seriously, um, and so it was just, yeah, and he was Kurt was living in the building,
Yeah.
Jorge was living in the building. It was just it was just timing, it was good timing, and Chris Higgins, who we all love playing with and being
Yeah.
around, just living down there, um uh and so we recorded just a bunch of sessions in Kurt's apartment, and he recorded everything on an ADAT, which
Oh
was that
wow.
old
Okay.
machine that used a video cassette tape, 8 tracks, somehow. I guess it was the same tape. Anyways, and then he just mixed it. It was very simple equipment, just a few microphones, and um yeah, it's funny now that I think back on it. It was, but it was nice because in a way we didn't have the pressure of being in the studio and being under the clock, and it
It
didn't
sounds
cost.
very relaxed. I mean, I guess you just called out the tunes like Skylark or Stairway to the Stars or whatever. And
Yeah, and to be honest, I had this book that Hal Crook wrote by hand called Old Tunes. I got it when I was in Boston, and it's just all these old standards that he wrote out by hand, the melody and the chords. And I used to love looking through that book and finding these tunes. Like I found a lot of tunes from the book actually without even hearing them. But,
oh, interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
those are nice records. I love those records. You still put them on, and it's like beautiful playing.
well,
Vibing.
and the next one, the girl named Joe,
Joe,
that
yeah,
that wasn't supposed to be my record. Jorge had this record date set up with Ben Monder and Mark Turner,
yeah,
um, and Mark Johnson.
exactly. Yeah, it's a killer.
But those guys, each of them had just made their own records, so nobody had any tunes that they wanted to record. So I had all these tunes, and I was living upstairs from Jorge, and at first he asked me if I could give him 1 or 2 songs for them. But I showed him all these tunes, and so he's like, "Oh, these tunes are all great. You come and bring your tunes, and it'll be your record."
Oh my
So
God.
I was the just like the last minute decision on that somehow. And then he asked Dan Reeser to play also, because we were
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
together, Moon Daddies with Dan and
yeah.
Jorge. So that was kind of an accident also. I mean,
Interesting. Yeah, I love those records.
unintentional.
You also love guitar, right? You must because like I think on almost every record, it's either it's Steve or Kurt or Ben on this one. I mean, like, what's your story
Yeah,
with guitar? You must have some connection or
yeah. My brother plays electric bass, and he also plays guitar. And I don't know, like my early experiences playing jazz were with guitar players. In our I had a high school band. We had a jazz band during the day, and there was a piano player, but there was also a guitar player, and I just always liked the sound of guitar, and I used to play with my brother's rock band. I would like go and like to the rehearsals when I be back in town like for Christmas or something, and I've always liked playing like that kind of music, like rock and
mm,
roll, like this guitar orientated rather than, and it's electric. Also like electric bass. I'm always a big fan of electric bass, and
mm,
um yeah, in some ways I guess I identify more with that sound than the acoustic
the
sound.
piano.
So,
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
um, but Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, many times when I listen to your tunes, it's like this rock element is present. Or like I hear the Beatles so many times in your music. I don't know why, but like it's always the melodies are so singable. It's like it's groovy and
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like tunes. I like songs
yeah,
that
yeah, exactly.
it's not too overly abstract, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, I started out just kind of thinking of composing as a hobby, just kind of doing it for fun, and I had like a a cassette 4 track, and this like Yamaha QY20 sequencer, um, and that was, and I had a Fender Rhodes in my apartment at that time, so that also influenced my writing, like writing on the Rhodes, I think,
Oh yeah.
um, and keyboards, like, um, but. Um, yeah, so I didn't like seriously like study composition. I mean, later I did, and I got intimidated and stopped writing for a while. Um, but um, yeah, I still, yeah, what I guess originally thought of it as just kind of like an oasis as a way of trying to find music that I wanted to listen to.
Mm,
Or not necessarily think about, even perform it or record it. It was just like four track projects,
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, many people, many musicians I've spoken to, they really love your compositions. I think that's why
Oh, okay.
many times they included tunes of yours. Like there are on so many records. I think there's like a composition of some of you, and I don't know who has spoken the other day too.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'll check. But yeah, yeah, everyone is like, oh man, Chris is writing amazing. So nice actually.
Oh, well, one helpful thing was I took a composition class with Guillermo a few years ago,
Mm,
in Brooklyn at I-Beam. I think it was 5 sessions every Saturday.
how beautiful.
And that's where Saturday songs came out of, because every Saturday was the class was on Saturday, and he would have like very practical ways for us to generate material, and I think that's, for composers, that's the interesting part of it.
Yeah,
It's not to wait until you're inspired, but it's another thing to be able to like craft ideas using certain, concepts or techniques. So yeah, he showed us some like really helpful like practical things and systems to work within, and
that's
um,
important. Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
but
I love the tunes on that one on Saturday songs. The Ginger something that I love that tune, man. It's like probably like Ginger Baker
oh right, yeah,
dedication or
yeah,
something.
that was
But
around that time when I seen that movie, and
yeah, yeah,
had
yeah.
seen him actually play at in New York at BB King's, actually.
Oh
He
wow,
was
really?
there.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
with Pee Wee Ellis,
Oh yeah, that group.
um,
Yeah,
bass player. I forget who the bass player was.
it was
Mm.
Jonas Hellberg for some time, but yeah, that was later. I saw him with Jonas
Oh,
Hellberg on bass on E-bass. But
Dankworth? Is he a bass player? John Dankworth?
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, from
Hey, I
England,
think it
from
was
the
him.
UK. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah. Uh,
oh, makes sense. Okay.
interesting guy, Ginger Baker. Yeah. But speaking of bass players, before I just wanted to ask you also about your connection with Charlie Hayden.
Oh,
You played with two of the greats, like among others, but like we mentioned Paul Motian, and there's Charlie. And what was what was your
yeah.
experience with Charlie like and getting that gig? I mean, what was the connection there?
Yeah, I can explain it. I'm so lucky. Didn't deserve the
Oh, come
opportunity.
on.
I never felt worthy, like, and it's funny, as the time has gone on, when I find out more about those guys and hear more of them, it's just like, I didn't realize, like
Mm,
just how profound, and, I mean, they didn't come off like that. So it's cool, but I guess, I was recommended by Paul.
mm.
Charlie wanted Paul to do the gig. He wanted Paul to be the drummer. That's what Paul said. And Paul said I told him no. So, um, yeah. And then somehow Steve Cardenas got in there,
Yeah,
and yeah, then, um, but yeah, with Carlo, they, Ani Freeman, before Vincent Chansey, they all go way back, and
yeah, yeah.
um, um, Curtis Folks and
Exactly.
Joe Daly. Um, but I got to stand right in front of him on the gigs, and it's just that's how he sounded, you know. Like it was, and he was just like going for it. Like that's the thing. Like none of those guys just like kind of phone it in. They're like still, like making it happen, and you can struggle or the effort sometimes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
um,
Interesting.
yeah, I always had a good experience with him. I heard a lot of stories about him as a person, but I didn't experience anything like that. Like he was always very cool with us, and but particular. But he just most of the time was off doing his thing, and we could show up for the sound checks and have dinner together and be like solid Jackson.
The dude, man. Interesting. Yeah, I
Um,
loved it. I mean, again, I loved his composing and obviously bass playing as well. Yeah, but
I just recently, one thing I like to do is I still like to transcribe a lot. I like to transcribe
oh,
tunes.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so was working on that tune Humpty Dumpty by
Yeah,
Ornette
sure.
Coleman, and I was
I love it.
transcribing Charlie's bass line on it.
Oh, wow, man.
It's
Okay.
really interesting, actually. And there's another version that they I haven't gotten to it yet, but that he recorded with Pat Metheny, where they
Oh,
played
yeah,
Humpty
that's a great one with Billy Higgins. Yeah,
Dumpty.
drums. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
beautiful, man. Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to like transcribe both choruses just to kind of compare because he's really doing some interesting stuff. And he comes from like his like country music background.
Yeah.
Really informs his uh his musicality and his choices. I think as a bass player.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting
Mhm.
player, especially as a band leader. I'm always curious asking people about Charlie because obviously as a sideman he did so much, and then he had the Quartet West, which is kind of peculiar in a sense. Like it's not Charlie, but it is also. I don't know. That's my feeling. I always associate him with Ornette and this kind of more open playing there with Ernie Watts. I don't know. And then I
Yeah.
love the Liberation. The Liberation
All,
was
all
fantastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. I don't know. What about Swallow? How was he like in contrast to Charlie working with him?
oh. Oh, he's a prince, He- yeah, he's so funny and like intelligent and
Yeah.
measured and kind um and yeah, just hilarious, well read, um
He's nice.
patient. Um yeah, like yeah, I mean when I'm working with him, like he would always like send us the parts in the mail and like nice paper and a nice envelope with a piece of cardboard in there too to keep it flat
Mm,
um and so yeah, his own projects have all been like very organized um and yeah, this his yeah, just seeing his tunes, like how well
oh
crafted
man, yeah,
they are and how thoughtful they are. Yeah.
yeah. I remember speaking
Um,
with him doing this talk with
and on
Steve.
the
Yeah,
road,
yeah. How was he on the road? Yeah.
okay, yeah. He likes to eat, and he's
Oh,
had a lot of
absolutely.
different stuff, so he knows what to order. Like everywhere we go. I've seen him eat pretty much everything, and in certain places in France, he knows like certain specialties and um. Well, and with Carla would always take notes on the ingredients at the meals. She'd have like that's the thing. She was always like writing stuff down too. And we'd be eating, and she'd be looking through her salad, trying to write down what was in the salad, to then maybe go home and try um, to make it later. Um,
Yeah.
uh, but with Steve, well, yeah, with Steve, we had Bill Strode was a road manager, and tour manager. So that was he worked with Charlie too,
Mm,
actually.
okay.
That was a nice aspect of working with him. Those guys like
That
um,
that was covered. Yeah.
Bill would do sound and like help us at the airport and deal with people at the ticket counter and getting on planes and navigating all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, being on the road, that's my longest tour was 17 gigs in 17 days, and I guess you
Wow.
you, you guys must have done way longer stuff, so that's
Hmm,
probably in the mid 90s or
let's see. I don't know what the longest we were out for. I don't know what the longest stretch was. I've never done 17 gigs. Maybe 13.
okay.
Like,
Well, that's a
I just did 9 in Germany with um yeah, Mike Kroll, trumpet player.
oh really? Oh, you were in Europe. Oh, fantastic, man. Beautiful. I have to catch you.
It's
For
yeah, Steve Swallow. I mean, that's another guy. Like he's up and down the stairs with his suitcase and his bass in the flight case, which is like kind of not so light, and he doesn't have roadies. It's like he's just like everybody else, just going up and down the
exactly.
stairs. And that was really eye-opening to see that those guys who are giants, like um don't act like that or
Yeah.
or still have the kind of lifestyle at that time that wasn't that didn't
Mm,
reflect that or
yeah. Yeah. I did the tour with Ariel Anderson, the bassist, and Bob Moses, and they
oh
were the
wow.
same, man. Like we finished the gig and went for a wine at the hotel, and they were like, "Yeah, man, when I played with Mingus or Eric Dolphy in '69," and then Ariel was like, "Yeah, on that tour with Sonny Rollins and Jon Christensen, I'm like a small kid there, like sipping my wine and like listening to these guys who are like,
Hmm.
on all the records I love and being really normal, and it's nice, cool to see that, like you mentioned, also with Steve and Charlie.
And I remember Steve and Paul, they would talk and they could just talk like nonstop and like and never repeat themselves, like telling stories about, like it was fascinating, man. Like really like like they never told the same thing, and
Mm.
um I was always, yeah, remarked at that. Um,
Because that's also the beauty, right, of being on tour with the elders. I mean, just to hear this part of oral heritage. I mean, it's part of jazz, right? Also, I love these stories. Like these guys were touring like in 1960s or 70s
mhm.
already, and I always
Yeah,
love hearing these stories of these guys. Like, man, so beautiful. I think that's part of playing with the elders, which makes it also amazing. That's that part.
yeah, that's I read something recently that was said that like wisdom is experience. It's not just
Yeah.
intellect, you know.
Yeah,
And those guys had a wisdom that came from their experience that was unique and
absolutely. Yeah,
vast.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, Chris, not to take too much of your time, but you mentioned you were in Europe now, but what are your plans for the upcoming year? I mean, do you have some tours coming up in Europe, or are you planning to promote the record also with in
Well,
some
I
sort
think
of?
yeah, Bill can't do it, but I think I'm going to play a gig in New York. I think the date's going to be June 11th.
Okay.
It's going to be at Bar by You. Um, let's see. After that, I'm at later in the month. It looks like I'll be going to France with these guys. This band Fox with Pierre Perchaud,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah, yeah, sure.
we did
Oh,
a
beautiful,
record with Jorge actually.
beautiful.
Um, they're setting up some stuff into early July, and then it looks like I'm going to be in Spain with Jimmy Weinstein and
Really?
Matt
Oh, wow. Okay.
Renzi and a bass player. I forget who a friend of Jimmy's is. Just quartet. They're getting some gigs like around Spain. So uh,
Beautiful. Old Fresh Sound days, almost.
yeah,
Jimmy did a lot of those in the 90s.
yeah. Hmm.
I think so. Yeah. What
Oh yeah.
about you promoting the record in
Well, I
Europe?
don't have
Like,
any.
do you have some plans or?
I don't know. I mean, Bill isn't available,
Yeah, sure.
to do anything like that. So I'll just try to get gigs when I can,
Yeah, sure.
and um,
Would be nice to see you with this group. I mean, maybe with Steve on guitar or someone like would be beautiful.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Fantastic, man. Cool.
yeah, definitely. So
Well, Chris, if you're going to be in Europe, drop me a line. We'll get together for a glass of wine. We live in a wine region, so
Okay.
let me know, and I would love to see you live one day to play. And